Hi, it's Mike Pangia. We're going to tackle an interesting, fun dish today known as a German pancake or a Dutch baby. Two different kinds. One is the sweet pancake-like breakfast treat, which puffs up very pretty like a souffle. And the second is a savory version, which has onions, garlic, typical things you would find in an omelet. Let's get started with the breakfast sweeter version. Here's what we're going to need for our classic Dutch baby, German pancake, or simple souffle, whatever you'd like to call it. About a teaspoon and a half of sugar, half a cup of milk, half a cup of all-purpose flour, vanilla, a pinch or two of salt, and 2 large eggs. Let's get started. We'll put our eggs in. Put the milk in. One and a half teaspoons of sugar, a pinch of salt, a little pure vanilla, a couple of shakes of cinnamon, and we'll get that stirred up real well so we can add the flour to a smooth mix. Okay, let's slowly add the flour. While I'm doing this, let me address something I do differently from just about every other recipe for a Dutch baby or German pancake, and that is the use of the stovetop. Just about every recipe I've ever seen goes straight to the oven, and I found that with the hot skillet and the hot oven and my bending down to pour the batter into the skillet, it's much easier to do it on the stovetop than in the oven. I wondered if it might make any difference, so I tested it a few times and I found that it was fine. I could start on the stovetop. Once it was all poured safely, I could pick up my skillet with a pot holder, of course, and put it into the hot oven, the preheated oven. One other little tidbit of information is if you're going to do this, when you first wake up in the morning, before you shower, before you brush your teeth, before you really get started with your day, come to the kitchen, take the milk out and the eggs out and let them start to get to room temperature. It's better than starting with them ice cold. Although I've done it both ways and it works okay if they're cold. Better if you have them at room temperature. Okay, this is looking pretty good. It's pretty smooth. So I'm about ready to continue. What we want to do here is melt some shortening or butter in an oven-proof skillet. I have my 6-inch cast iron skillet here. We want to avoid burning the butter, having it turn brown. We just want to get it melted. While it's heating, twirl the pan so you can cover the sides of the skillet with your shortening or butter. That'll help prevent sticking later in the process. Okay, that's about ready. Give the batter one last twirl. Okay, after a minute or so on the stove top, we're ready to put it into our preheated oven. Okay, that looks about ready. As you can see, it's puffed up, beautiful, browned around the edges. Sometimes you'll get extra butter or shortening in the well on top, and I like to blot it out before I serve it. Use a paper towel. There we go. Pops right out. Is that not a beautiful thing? Well, that was fun. Now let's look at the savory version of the Dutch baby. I have to warn you though, once we add the solids like the diced onion and the cheese pieces and so on into it, it will not puff up and rise as well as the standard version that we just completed. Here are the ingredients I'll be using. 2 eggs, just under a half a cup of flour, just under a half a cup of milk, a pinch of salt, some fresh chives from the garden, a couple of tablespoons of diced onion, a couple of tablespoons of cubed cheddar cheese, and 1 fat garlic clove, finely minced. I'm going to saute the onions lightly before using them. Let's put it together. Start with our eggs. Milk. Let's stir that up a little bit with the whisk so that the flour will go in smoother. Put in the flour. Pinch of salt. 2 pinches. There we go. Before we put the solid ingredients in, I like to get this smooth. Get rid of the flour lumps. Okay, pretty good. Now we're going to fold in the other solid ingredients. There's the chives from my garden. Lightly sauteed onions. Garlic. And the cheese. It might look a little bit slim on the solids, but if you add too much solid to the mix, it won't puff up properly like a pretty souffle should. I'm going to use my 6-inch cast iron skillet for this. Add a generous amount of butter. What we want it to do is melt, but put the batter in before it turns brown and starts to burn. This is a little different from other recipes you may see for a Dutch baby or German pancake or souffle, in that I'm using the top of the stove first to get it started, and then we'll transfer it to the oven, which I've preheated to 425. Okay, swirl your butter or shortening so that you line the edges of the skillet so that later nothing will stick. Okay, that looks ready to go. I'm going to put our batter in, using the spatula to get it all so we don't miss any of those good ingredients. After a minute or so on the stove top, we're ready to put it into the oven. That's about 15 minutes. It looks pretty good to me. There it is. I hope you found this video interesting and useful. And if you did, I'd like to tell you there are more on the way. Hit subscribe at the bottom of this screen and you'll get the rest of them. Thanks for watching.